people were arrested as hundreds blocked traffic on 2 major highways, waving Mexican flags and burning a giant effigy of Donald Trump. Police fired rubber bullets, and pepper spray at hundreds of protesters after the crowds took over major intersections.
Load up, load up, load up, rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
Fraud, homophobia, sexual assault, white supremacy.
In terms of reaching out and being inclusive, he's done that too. And a will to rest to make things better, and opportunities to embrace the underserved communities.
White privilege!
Load up, rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
Here in New York, as many as 10,000 people surged through the streets and surrounded the barricaded-off Trump Tower where Donald Trump lives.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
We reject the president-elect. Load up, rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
I think it speaks to the disenfranchisement of the people that someone like him could be seen as offering anything to the masses.
Load up, rubber bullets.
Little snowflake falling from the sky.
What about gay people? Trump has vowed to protect the LGBT community from a fanatical ideology that represents its biggest threat, radical Islam.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology.
Load up, rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
He is a racist.
Under Obama, more black people are living below the poverty line. The number of African Americans on food stamps has increased 58% under Obama.
On every leading economic issue, on the major economic issues, black Americans have lost ground in every one of those leading categories. So for the last 10 years, it's not been good for black folks.
Is this how the left helps black communities? By making them poorer and more dependent on government. Race relations are at their worst in decades. 8 years of Obama has been devastating for the black community.
He is a sexist. He is a neo-Nazi.
Well, we don't understand why you called in the National Guard.
Falling on my nose.
Not my president. He is a lying ass.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
Fake ass.
Little snowflake falling from the sky.
Dumb ass son of a bitch.
Load up, rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake falling, 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 falling.
That's not my president. That's not my president. Load up, rubber bullets.
Falling in my hand.
Thank you for taking America back 60 years of progress.
Falling on my head.
You just voted in a Nazi fascist.
Falling on my nose. Falling in my hand. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do?
Live from the Nightside Radio Studios.
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Coming to you from Nebraska by way of Alaska. Here's J.J. McCartney.
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome back to the J.J. McCartney Show on this Tuesday, the 19th day of December. Hello, everybody. Well, you can tell the decor in the studio is somewhat different. You may have noticed a little change of scenery. And we've only just begun to remodel and to build something amazing. And we also have a little more room to breathe now, which is great. And welcome, everybody. It's good to have you with us. Thank you for persevering as we're dealing with website issues. And as I said, hostile attacks on not only jjmccartney.com, but basically almost everybody at Red State Talk Radio has been, their websites have been hacked, or they've attempted to hack in, I should say. And, of course, our man Scott is right on the job, right on top of everything. But for those of you that were wondering, hey, where'd you guys go? We're still here. And we are streaming live on YouTube. We are streaming live at Red State Talk Radio. We're streaming live at jjmccartney.com. And if that's not enough for you folks out there in Radio Land, we are also streaming live on Spreaker.com. So there's no way you can't get us. And for those folks that are listening on Roku and the devices, they're everywhere. We're going to have to get one here. I think it's going to be my Christmas present to my family is a Roku device so that we can listen anytime we want in the living room or wherever without having to lift much of a finger. Well, how are you doing today, folks? I hope you're doing well. I honestly do. The holiday season, I know, can be stressful on people at times. It can also be stressful on your pocketbooks. Look, take a little bit of pressure off yourself. That's what I'm doing today. I am totally taking the pressure off. There is nothing, honestly, I don't think that this marketing and pressure that you feel to get people presents at Christmas time, I don't think that reflects what Jesus would want us to do to commemorate his birthday. I know it's not exact. Scientifically, there are arguments about exactly what day or where on the calendar Christ was born. But I don't think that he would want us to stress too much about holiday gifts and things like that. Obviously, you want to make your family happy and make the kids feel like there's a special significance to this time of year. But does it have to involve going into massive credit card debt? I don't think it does. Well, folks, obviously dominating the news these days, certainly since yesterday, the Amtrak derailment just outside of Tacoma, Washington. And the details on this, ladies and gentlemen, the details on this are very disturbing. The investigators looking into the fatal crash involving an Amtrak train near Tacoma yesterday say they will be focusing on, among other things, the speed of the train. It reportedly was going 80 miles an hour around a curve that had a speed limit for the locomotive of 30 miles per hour. Now, that's one of the things we're going to be investigating, said Bella Din-Zar in a network interview. She is the vice chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board. 13 of the train's 14 cars and engines left the rails yesterday and crashed at the bridge, including several that crashed down on cars traveling on Interstate 5. At least 3 people were killed, and nearly 100 suffered injuries, and searchers were combing the wreckage to ascertain the exact death toll. The Seattle Times noted that Russell Quimby, a consultant who previously investigated for the NTSB, printed out that the track appeared relatively undisturbed, but the train drove in a straight line, missing the turn. The Washington Department of Transportation confirmed that the speed limit for trains drops from 79 miles an hour just before the curve and the bridge where the accident happened. Signs are posted 2 miles in advance and again at the site. Train 501 had just departed the Seattle area for Portland, Oregon, when it crashed while approaching a bridge over Interstate 5 at DuPont, Washington. It was on its first run along that route since a $181 million project that was intended to speed up service by moving the trains to optional rails that have fewer curves and less traffic. According to the Daily Mail, Mary Schiavo, a transportation analyst from CNN, speculated that the combination of the speed and the curve will be an important factor. Do you think? This train was about to enter or was entering a curve, and while they had to modify the tracks and test the tracks, and all of this work was done at the beginning of December, local officials in Washington were highly critical of sending a train at that speed through this area. They specifically warned that it needed to slow down at the curves. Well, she continued, I always like to say, whether it's a train crash or a plane crash, the laws of physics are the only laws you cannot break. And while they tested it, testing as opposed to running a full-sized, fully loaded train with live human beings over the tracks changes the physics. It changes the dynamics of the forces that you have in that curve. It's like racing a motorcycle. As you approach that curve, the centrifugal forces on the train change dramatically. And I bet the NTSB is going to pay a lot of attention to the topography and whether the train was entering a curve. The engineer notified dispatchers of the emergency when it happened. Amtrak 501, emergency, emergency, emergency. We are on the ground, he said. Is everybody okay? The dispatcher asked. I'm still figuring that out, said the engineer. Officials confirmed that a new feature called positive train control, which can automatically slow a train in order to avoid danger, was installed along the route, but not activated yet. Isn't that your tax dollars hard at work right there? Pierce County Sheriff's Detective Ed Troyer said the train struck several vehicles on Interstate 5, but nobody in vehicles died. Maria Hetland was on the highway when she came upon the blockage. It was awful, she told Seattle Times, saying that there were people walking on the roadway and more sitting on the side of the road wrapped in blankets. I don't know how the train fell off that bridge, she said. There's a whole railing, a wall. I don't know how it crashed through the wall, she told the paper. Local TV station KING TV talked with Greg Mukia, who was on the highway. He said, I looked up, and obviously super scary. The train had come off the overpass there, and parts of it were kind of hanging. Lots of smoke, people running to try to help. CBS News reported Amtrak announced service from Seattle to Portland had been suspended. Do you think? The network reported the Cascades service route was rated for a maximum speed of 79 miles per hour for the section where the crash happened. Transitdocs.com, a website that maps Amtrak train locations and speeds, says train 501 was going 81.1 miles per hour moments before the derailment. A list published by a Fox affiliate this week revealed that speed has played a key role in several recent derailments. Speed itself. On April 3rd, 2016, an Amtrak train going more than 100 miles an hour in Chester, Pennsylvania, derailed and struck and killed 2 maintenance workers. Then on May 12th, 2015, another Amtrak running near Philadelphia derailed and left 8 dead and more than 200 hurt when it hit a sharp curve going twice the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. So it sounds to me like what needs to happen is that the people at Amtrak and the people at the NTSB, they kind of need to get their crap together, don't they? I mean, I don't mean to be overly critical of these people. I'm sure many of them feel just awful about what's happened here. But that's not enough. Feeling awful about this certainly doesn't absolve you from your responsibilities. And the fact that they had put in this automatic safety system, but they hadn't activated it yet, doesn't that tell you that there was already some trepidation about starting this run without having this safety feature in place and operational? Now, I don't know how many people actually died. Yesterday they were saying 6. Today they're saying 3. Obviously, I mean, time will tell. I'm sure there's a lot of broken bones, and there's going to be a lot of lawsuits. That I can almost guarantee you. Meanwhile, there's a story of heroism having to do with the Amtrak train crash, having to do with an Eagle Scout. And we'll talk about that. We'll tell you a little more about that in just a little while, but there's some other news on the wire that I wanted to share with you today, including a story about Lois Lerner and her secret comments, which have been targeted. A Washington watchdog group has been fighting for the public's right to know the who, what, when, where, and why of the IRS campaign to target and bully Tea Party and other conservative groups about the time that they wanted to oppose Barack Obama's re-election bid in 2012. So now that it's going back into the courtroom where Judicial Watch is trying to get these records unsealed, whatever explanation may or may not have been gleaned from Lois Lerner as to who headed the tax-exempt division of the IRS team. So Judicial Watch confirmed yesterday that it has filed a friend of the court brief in another case in which the depositions of Lois Lerner and her aide, Holly Paz, were targeted. Now, both played key roles in the targeting of conservative nonprofit groups opposed to Obama and his policies in the run-up to the 2012 presidential election. Now, the organization submitted its request in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Ohio, the Western Division, where a case already was underway by the NorCal Tea Party Patriots. So the pressure is now on. We're going to find out what Lois Lerner had to say. We'll find out what she knew and when she knew it. And how aware do you suppose Barack Obama and his team of political bullies were with regard to the suppression of, well, basically what it was, you know, it was very simply denying nonprofit status to Tea Party groups. which, of course, during that whole time, they were handing out nonprofit statuses to any group that was working in favor of Obama, and then denying. I mean, and this is the politicization of the Internal Revenue Service. So you've got the politicization of the Internal Revenue Service, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Justice Department as a whole, the EPA. I mean, all of these departments. You remember how many czars Barack Obama appointed? I mean, right after he took office. Yeah, some pretty nasty stuff going on. Folks, we're going to take our first break of the hour. We'll come back with more in just a minute. Toll-free phone lines are open at 855-853-5227. More of the J.J. McCartney Show is coming up next.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
Hey, everybody. J.J. McCartney here. You know, it's not very often that I get excited about a product, but I am sure excited about this one. I'm talking, of course, about MyPillow.com. These pillows are made in the USA. They come with a 60-day comfort guarantee and a 10-year warranty. They are machine washable and dryable. They come with a patented interlocking fill. It keeps you cool at night, and it will not go flat. Go to MyPillow.com. Click the Radio Listeners Special tab and use promo code JJMC to get 2 premium king or queen size pillows and 2 additional go anywhere travel pillows for one special price and free shipping. That's mypillow.com, promo code JJMC, or call 800-953-6613. That's 800-953-6613. mypillow.com, promo code JJMC.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Is this vast right-wing conspiracy that has been conspiring against my husband since the day he announced for president.
I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
I never told anybody to lie.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
Not a single time. Never. These allegations are false.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
The Clintons took $2 million from me and hid it.
Now, what we're looking at here is the largest election law fraud in the history of the United States.
Allegations of lying about the cost of a fundraiser put together on her behalf.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
Whatever it is you're doing, is it okay that I thank you?
Well, you know what? We're having a good time trying to help out.
This sounds like it's going to be a great event. I'm glad you were all together so that I could tell you how much this means to me.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I was sensitive to lights and sounds, so I'd build secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. Sometimes I'd do the same things over and over, until one day I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
JJMcCartney.com.
That is a pretty good breakfast. You're not even eating.
Not hungry.
Why not? What's up?
Kath and I knew that Jenny'd been partying a bit. Found out she tried heroin.
Most people don't know what to say about drugs, but we do. Visit us at drugfree.org. A message from the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, where families find answers.
Okay, we are back on the J.J. McCartney Show. Thanks for joining us on the Tuesday edition on this 19th day of December. I don't know what happened to our computer, but it's giving the wrong date. So shame on that computer. Oh, you know what? I don't know what happened, but for whatever reason, it reverted to Friday's metadata. I'm going to have to talk to the people that wrote this software. Bill Gates, get on the phone with me. I have a few choice words for you, Mr. Gates. That's right. I'm not very happy at all with Mr. Gates. Now, I will say this. For those of you that are looking for that last-minute Christmas present, I know, we're not crassly commercial here, but yeah, you can still get a good deal on a gift that keeps on giving all year. And I'm speaking, of course, of the J.J. McCartney Show mug, which is on sale right now at eBay. You can go there, and for a one-time donation, we will send you a J.J. McCartney Show mug to show our appreciation, and we will also throw in a pen and a refrigerator magnet, whatever else we can find. Who knows, I might even throw a couple of cookies into the mix. It just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. But right now I'm in a very I'm in the mood to talk a little more about what's happening in the news, because, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump has reached a near milestone here. The House of Representatives has passed the GOP tax bill. The Senate will follow. The House passed a sweeping $1.5 trillion tax bill today, slashes tax rates for corporations, provides new breaks for private businesses, and reorganizes the individual tax code. With the Senate expected to follow suit as soon as today or tonight, President Trump could sign the package, dubbed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, into law before the end of the week. It would be his first significant legislative victory and the biggest tax overhaul in a generation. The Republican bill was approved on a 227 to 203 vote in the House, with no Democrats supporting it. 12 Republicans also voted against the measure, but it did pass. The bill, the product of negotiations between the House and the Senate, achieves longtime Republican goals, including a permanent reduction in the corporate tax rate to 21% from 35%. That supporters argue will make American businesses more competitive overseas. Many pass-through businesses also receive a more complicated 20% deduction, which became a subject of fierce debate after the final bill added a provision likely to benefit real estate companies like Donald Trump's. House Speaker Paul Ryan spoke on the House floor moments before the vote and said the legislation will help hardworking Americans who have been left behind for too long. He said, "Today we are giving the people their money back," adding that a typical family would get about $2,059 in tax cuts next year. The debate in the Senate tonight could go on for as long as 10 hours, but it could not also. Passage is a virtually certainty. I love the way they wrote that, but passage is a virtually certainty. No, 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 CNBC, shame on you. Its passage is a virtual certainty. It is not a virtually certainty. You could have said, but passage is virtually certain, but you can't put the Y on the end of that word and then follow it with another word that has a Y on it. You dumbasses. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give NBC a break here. Aren't they the ones that are always talking about how stupid Donald Trump is? And yet they can't even manage a sentence that makes sense? But passage is a virtually certainty. Yeah. And they wonder why their ratings are so low. Now, Democrats opposed the legislation as a boon to the wealthy while offering little for the middle class. Well, excuse me, but this is about stimulating the economy, creating jobs in America. Yeah, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi calling it the worst bill to ever come to the floor of the House. Really? In 241 years? You're saying this is the worst bill ever? Why? Oh, because it takes money out of the hands of the politicians and puts it back in the hands of the people. Uh-huh. Now, the bill lowers individual tax rates, including the top bracket, to 37% from 39.6%, while it doubles the standard deduction and replaces personal exemptions with a $2,000 partly refundable child tax credit. It eliminates various deductions while limiting others on state and local taxes and mortgage interest. It also exempts larger inheritances from the estate tax, doubling the thresholds to $11 million for individuals and $22 million for married couples. Wow. Now, the bill also has significant implications for health care, where it abolishes the Affordable Care Act's penalty for Americans who don't purchase insurance. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that that change would lead 13 million more Americans to go without coverage. I would love to see them prove that. After a decade, and cause premiums on the individual market to rise 10% per year. I say prove it. As these people, isn't it amazing? The Congressional Budget Office. Yeah, they're always going to oppose anything that errs on the side of you and me. At the White House, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I believe she just prefers to be called Sarah Sanders now, FYI NBC, anticipating final passage of the bill in the Senate tonight, saying the president will have delivered the most significant tax cut in the history of the nation. We will look forward to signing it, hopefully in the next couple days, she added. While Republicans are enthusiastic about the efforts, the legislation is also intensely unpopular with the American public. Bullshit. That is absolute bullshit. NBC. It says the legislation is also intensely unpopular with the American public, with numerous surveys showing voters skeptical they'll gain from its temporary cuts. I got to tell you, folks, it's one thing to allow your opinions to color your commentary. But when you start stating as fact that the American people don't want these tax cuts, then you're just stuck on stupid. Yes, that absolutely fits NBC. And, of course, then you've got idiots. Well, here's separate polls by Quinnipiac, Marist, and Monmouth. Let me see. Let's gauge where these polls are taken. New York, and New York. Wow. Here's the quote from Chuck Schumer. I have some choice words for him, too. Hey, Chucky, give me a call toll-free at 855-853-5227. I'd like to tell you a few things that apparently your parents forgot to teach you when you were little. He says, Republicans will rue the day they passed this tax bill because it's so unfair to the middle class. Well, tell me something, Chuck. Had we done nothing like you wanted to do, what would happen to the middle class? Well, the middle class would keep on shrinking as more and more people were forced out of work because there were no jobs being created because the tax environment was so hostile towards corporations. The highest tax rate in the industrialized world. Chucky. He says, it so blows a hole in our deficit. Seriously? Aren't you the party that ran up $10 trillion in debt in less than 8 years? And you're going to lecture us about deficits while ignoring the fact that government revenues always go up when taxes are cut. Chucky. It so threatens Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. They will rue the day, says Chuck Schumer. Now, Republican lawmakers argue that voters will come around to the legislation as members tout its benefits at home and taxpayers see gains in their own returns and in the broader economy. President Trump boasted in a tweet on Tuesday that the stock market had risen in recent months. He says, I don't think we've done a good job messaging, said Greg Walden, a Republican of Oregon, telling reporters ahead of the vote, I don't think we've gotten out there the specifics. And the final bill has only come together in the last week or so. White House Director of Legislative Affairs Mark Short said Americans' opinions of the GOP tax plan would improve in the months ahead. He said, I think it's going to change, and we will see once the economy continues to roar and people begin to see more coming in their paychecks. He said on MSNBC, the Joint Committee on Taxation, the official congressional scorekeeper, estimates every income group would receive an average tax cut next year, but they also found taxes would go up for lower incomes, that is, people that never paid anything before, in part because fewer eligible taxpayers would choose to receive health care subsidies through the Affordable Care Act. So, anyway, leave it to the media to try and rain on this parade. I mean, they're going to say as many negative things as they can. I mean, certainly they're going to. They have, and by the way, their record sucks. You look at the way the economy stalled during Obama's reign. They couldn't even hit 3% GDP. Donald Trump does it his first year. And they're talking now about 4%. And the Democrats couldn't do that in how many months? Well, let's see. 8 times 12 is what? Oh, let's see. Well, we got the 80. If you go 8 times 10, okay, 96 months. In 96 months, Barack Obama could not get the GDP to 3%. But keep in mind that was never his goal. His idea was to drop the GDP down so low that, everybody would be declaring bankruptcy and enrolling in Obamacare. That was what they were planning on. The central planners at Soros Incorporated were running the show for 96 months. So, everybody was saying, well, it's going to take a long time. If Trump's plan ever works, it's going to take a long time to take effect. Yeah, it took, 6 weeks? Stock market rose dramatically, and it continues to do so. But they're saying, this is smoke and mirrors, hocus pocus, blah, blah, blah. It strikes me as disingenuous for this news media to poo-poo everything that Donald Trump has done, while at the same time going out of their way never to blame anything on Obama. You remember how Obama blamed Bush? It was always talking about what he inherited from Bush. Have you heard President Trump say anything to that effect? No. He was just too busy doing his job to stop and try and fill out his own report card. Whereas Barack Obama and the Democrats, they They love to fill out their own report card. They just love it. It's what they live for. That is what they live for, to fill out their own report cards and then pretend that it means anything. Meanwhile, the stock market is, hovering near 25,000. It's got a few hundred points to go, but it's certainly way, way above and beyond anything that the leftist punditry had to say about Donald Trump when he took office. This man knows business very well. And he understood what needed to happen in America for business to really get the boost. And he understood that jobs don't create themselves, that you have to create an environment where businesses can see the profitability of it. Because if they can't, why bother? Nobody goes in business to break even. Not even the Democrats. All right? So for all of you moral hoity-toities out there on the left, you're going to find fault no matter what Donald Trump does. I mean, you guys can go piss up a rope. Donald Trump obviously doesn't need you. And neither do the American people. I'm sorry, I'm just calling a spade today for some reason. I just can't contain myself. Ladies and gentlemen, we got much more to come on the Tuesday edition on this 19th day of December on the J.J. McCartney Show. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back with more in just a minute. Do not go away, ladies and gentlemen. More to come. We'll tell you about the Eagle Scout in Tacoma, Washington, coming up next.
If you agree with JJ's conservative pillars for rescuing America's economy, stay tuned for more. If you are a liberal and think everything is okay, you can go pet your unicorn now.
You said while the law was being debated, if you like your plan, you can keep it. You said after the law was implemented or signed, if you like your plan, you can keep it. Americans believed you, sir, when you said that to them over and over.
Millions of people are trying to accept the loss of their plans you told them could be kept. And one thing that's baffling folks around the planet is how have these plans been canceled, but Two Broke Girls hasn't? I've tried and I've tried, but the effort's in vain. Never has a website inflicted such pain. For our wasted time is a bailout in sight. Can't comment, G. But can't comment, cuz. Why can't you comment? I don't have Google+. But this is your law, and now people need help. I mean, you wrote the thing. Did you just knockout game yourself? Selling hopes like selling soap, son, I'll tell you why. You can't make either one without a little bit of lie. Selling hopes like selling soap, son, I'll tell you why. You can't make either one without a little bit of lie. Selling hopes like selling soap, son, I'll tell you why. You can't make either one without a little bit of lie. Selling hopes like selling soap, son, I'll tell you why.
Psst, it's me, your bathroom medicine cabinet. I see you naked, know how often you floss, and watch you pluck unsightly hairs. I can keep a secret, but you need to know. Your kids have been taking your prescriptions to get high. I couldn't keep it quiet because prescription drug abuse now causes more deaths than cocaine and heroin ODs combined. So please, mind your meds. For tips on safeguarding your meds and your family, visit the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids at drugfree.org.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
A message from DAV to returning veterans. Thank you for doing your duty and doing our bidding. Thank you for stepping up and not backing down. Thank you for putting yourself in harm's way and putting your buddies' lives ahead of your own. Thank you for defending our freedom and displaying your honor. DAV thanks all veterans by fighting to get them the benefits and support they were promised. Visit DAV.org for free help. And again, thank you.
All right, we're back on the Tuesday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show. Thanks for joining us on RedStateTalkRadio.com. Also live at JJMcCartney.com and Spreaker.com. Thank you all for joining us today. Toll-free phone lines are open at 855-853-5227. And we would love to hear from you today. If you've got a question, comment, you care to speak on the pompatus of Donald Trump. You thought I was going to say the pompatus of love, didn't you? You can tell how old people are by what they know about music. And it's never more obvious than when you've got 3 younger contestants on Jeopardy! The other day, there was a category that had to do with popular music from the 1980s, which, for me is not that long ago. It's only 30 years, right? I was getting every one of them right, before the question was even fully on the screen. And none of these youngsters playing Jeopardy! Had a clue. And I know that's not their fault, but it's amazing to me how completely the younger folks are so out of touch with what I would consider to be classic rock and roll or classic music of that era. It's amazing to me how time just keeps marching forward. And the young people, it's nothing against you folks that are younger. Heck, it's not your fault. You were born when you were born. But it was pretty funny that some of these things were so obvious to me, and yet the children were oblivious to all of it. And when I say children, I mean people under the age of 30, basically. It's amazing. You get these young people on the show that, the Jeopardy! Thing. It's bad enough that they have to deal with Trebek. Well, by the way, every single day, his hair gets whiter and whiter and whiter. It's time for a new host on Jeopardy! Am I volunteering for the job? Well, no, I'm not. But I'd love to get somebody out there that is from my generation. Maybe Jeff Foxworthy. We'll move him over to Jeopardy! Wouldn't that be a hoot? That way he could pretend he knows the answers just like Alex does. Yeah. Okay, folks. Yesterday, we've already talked about the Amtrak derailment, but let's tell the story of a real hero. An Eagle Scout who was one of the first people to arrive on scene. He was there well before any of the first responders showed up. His name is Dan Kanzelman. Was driving with his girlfriend southbound on Interstate 5 south of Tacoma, Washington, Monday, when to his astonishment, he saw the Amtrak train go off the overpass ahead of him and crash onto the busy freeway. Now, while most of the stunned onlookers in nearby automobiles stayed in place, no doubt making 911 calls for help, Kanzelman, an Eagle Scout, by the way, took a nearby exit and ran to the scene. He and his girlfriend, Alicia Hoverson, found that first responders had not yet arrived. The two climbed into one of the train cars, noting only a few of the train cars were still on the track, and the other 8 or so had derailed, with one lodged on top of automobiles on the interstate. We went through the trains one at a time, made sure people were stable. If they could move, we got them out. Some of them couldn't move. They had back or neck injuries. So we assigned people to stay with them and keep them calm. And then we worked our way down to the more serious injuries, where people were pinned underneath the trains that had flipped upside down, and unfortunately, there were some deceased. Now, Kanzelman estimated it was about 25 minutes before first responders arrived at the scene. He said he and his girlfriend and the firefighters who eventually arrived were able to free some of the most seriously injured passengers after about 45 minutes. Some, he said, had broken legs or ankles, and most had head trauma. He explained that in his Boy Scout training, he was taught how to respond in these situations. They teach you to stay calm and to talk to people, to calm them down, and to be a peacemaker, he said. I did my best. I did what they taught me in the Boy Scouts, and I think I was able to help a lot of people. Conzelman said many of the passengers had difficulty breathing. We said, breathe slowly. You're going to be okay. You're walking on your own 2 feet. We're going to get you some help. You looked great. Some were in shock, he said, just sitting in their cars, or rather their seats, and staring. One of the 2 KING TV anchors asked Conzelman during the live interview what made him run toward the scene. He said, most people don't do that. He said, I knew I could help. And I knew nobody else would. And I knew that I was in that position. Were I in that position, pinned underneath a train car, I would want somebody to come and help me. I couldn't not help. He said he and his girlfriend prayed with many of the injured and trapped passengers to comfort them and let them know that God is with them. In a situation like this, you feel pretty small. But when you realize God is in control, it's really calming. And there's a lot of people in a lot of peace in knowing that. Well, the anchor asked him what he specifically prayed. Then, before Conzelman could respond, added that the question may be too personal. He said no, indicating he was comfortable answering the question. He said, I prayed for God to just be in the situation. Some of the cars were suspended, and as the firefighters and police officers were working to remove people, I was fearful that they might shift and injure more people. So I was praying that God would stabilize the train cars and prevent any further injury. He said he also prayed that God would give the people involved peace and comfort and would just help us get these people out. A lot of people were so thankful that we could be there to keep them calm and be there with them and pray with them and give them God's peace. That's all I could do, and that's what I was doing. Well, you know what? America needs more of these types of young people. People that are not content to be spectators when there are people sitting in precarious situations that need help. You know, a lot of people would hesitate in that situation for fear of one thing. Can you tell me what that is? You're right. The fear of being sued for being a good Samaritan. But in this situation, I think, you can't allow fear to defeat concern and human compassion in that situation. So I'm very proud of this young man for doing what he did. I hope America learns a lot of lessons from these kinds of things instead of standing around after the fact and saying, gee, what happened? You say, well, I didn't wait to say what happened. I jumped in to do what I could. It's it's got to be an unimaginably terrifying thing for these passengers who were planning on arriving in Portland instead to find themselves fighting for their lives. And when things take that kind of turn, especially in such a, brief instant, I'm sure this whole thing was, no more than 2 or 3 seconds in the making. But that can be the difference between life and death, as it was for at least 3 people yesterday. But it's good to know that there are some good young people out there that didn't wait, didn't hesitate, Didn't say, well, what if? They just jumped in and started helping. And certainly that needs to happen more. Well, here's a weird story. Not terribly weird, but, it has implications. A Tennessee couple has welcomed a baby girl who grew from the longest frozen embryo to ever result in a birth. Benjamin and Tina Gibson's daughter, Emma Wren, weighed in at 6 pounds, 8 ounces when she came into the world on November 25th. Prior to being transferred into Tina's uterus at the National Embryo Donation Center in Knoxville earlier this year, the embryo Emma grew from had been cryopreserved for more than 24 years, according to a news report. And according to the research staff at the University of Tennessee Preston Medical Library, that makes her the all-time record holder for the longest frozen embryo to result in birth. The National Embryo Donation Center says it has helped produce more pregnancies through embryo adoption, nearly 700, than any other organization or clinic. Interestingly, Emma's embryo was frozen on October 14th, 1992, when Tina was just a year and a half old. It is deeply moving and highly rewarding to see that embryos frozen 24 and a half years ago, using the old early cryopreservation techniques of slow freezing on day 1 of development at the pronuclear stage, can result in 100% survival of the embryos with a 100% continued proper development to the day 3 embryo stage, said lab director Carol Sommerfeld. Emma is such a sweet miracle. Benjamin said of his daughter, "I think she looks pretty perfect to have been frozen all those years ago." The NEDC has been privileged to work with the Gibsons to help them realize their dreams of becoming parents, said medical director Dr. Jeffrey Keenan, saying, "We hope this story is a clarion call to all couples who have embryos in long-term storage to consider this life-affirming option for their embryos." It's, it does raise some questions. I mean, there are certainly some things that people might want to know. I mean, first of all, biologically speaking, I mean, what if, God forbid, something happened to the parents of this child? Well, then, what would the courts suggest as far as where this child would go? Or what if this child was to, develop a terminal illness of some sort, requiring expensive health care? Who would be on the hook for that if the parents themselves could not afford the coverage they needed? And, if you're the child's biological father, do you have any parental rights? All of these questions. But, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying ethically it does raise a few question marks. Folks, phone lines are open, 855-853-5227. We've got to take a break for the top of the hour. We'll come back with hour number 2 of the J.J. McCartney Show. And tomorrow on the show, IQ Al Rassouli will be with us. You don't want to miss that. That's coming up on the Wednesday edition. And, we're gearing up for Christmas just like everybody else. So, don't expect miracles between now and Christmas Day, but we'll do our best to keep things as topical and lively as possible. Stick around, folks. Hour number 2 of the Tuesday J.J. McCartney Show is coming up next.
Small California, at least 13 people were arrested as hundreds blocked traffic on 2 major highways, waving Mexican flags and burning a giant effigy of Donald Trump. Police fired rubber bullets, and pepper spray at hundreds of protesters after the crowds took over major intersections.
Load up, load up, load up, we're rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
Fraud, homophobia, sexual assault, white supremacy.
In terms of reaching out and being inclusive, he's done that too. And a will to rest, to make things better, and opportunities to embrace the underserved communities.
White privilege!
Load up, we're rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
Here in New York, as many as 10,000 people surged through the streets and surrounded the barricaded-off Trump Tower where Donald Trump lives.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
We reject the president-elect! Load up, we're rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
I think it speaks to the disenfranchisement of the people that someone like him could be seen as offering anything to the masses.
Load up, we're rubber bullets.
Little snowflake falling from the sky.
What about gay people? Trump has vowed to protect the LGBT community from a fanatical ideology that represents its biggest threat, radical Islam.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology.
Load up, we're rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
He is a racist.
Under Obama, more black people are living below the poverty line. The number of African Americans on food stamps has increased 58% under Obama.
On every leading economic issue, on the major economic issues, black Americans have lost ground in every one of those leading categories. So for the last 10 years, it's not been good for black folks.
Is this how the left helps black communities? By making them poorer and more dependent on government. Race relations are at their worst in decades. 8 years of Obama has been devastating for the black community.
He is a sexist. He is a neo-Nazi.
Well, we don't understand why you called in the National Guard.
Falling on my nose.
Not my president. He is a lying ass.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
Fake ass.
Little snowflake falling from the sky.
Dumb ass son of a bitch.
Load up, we're rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
That's not my president! That's not my president! Load up, we're rubber bullets.
Falling in my hand.
Thank you for taking America back 60 years of progress.
Falling on my head.
You just voted in a Nazi fascist.
Falling on my nose. Falling in my hand. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do?
Live from the Nightside Radio Studios.
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Coming to you from Nebraska by way of Alaska. Here's J.J. McCartney.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's hour number 2 of the J.J. McCartney Show. Thank you all for being with us. And we thank you for joining us on the Tuesday edition here. Okay, we've got plenty of things to talk about to fill up this second hour of the show. We'll talk, a little more about the tax cuts that are on their way to being passed in the Senate. We'll talk about the things that the left simply. I'm not convinced that they don't get it. I'm just convinced that they don't want the people of the United States to keep more of what they earn. I mean, it really comes down to that. It's a malicious thing that the left has done to the American people over a long period of time. And it really is that simple. Most of legislating comes down to one thing, and that is every representative's personal degree of want to. That's what it comes down to. If they want it bad enough, they'll find a way to do it. And that is called political will. It was expressed at the polls in November 2016. And the Democrats, they found themselves in the position of being in the minority in both of the houses. And yet they tried to act as though they were still in power. And to many people, that's representative of the fact that they have the deep state. And the opinion is that the deep state is what really dictates what gets done and what doesn't get done. Now, the bottom line is that it's not that the Democrats don't get it. It's not that they're that stupid. I mean, don't get me wrong, they are stupid. But that's not the thing that we need to focus on. We need to focus on is it's not that they're stupid. It's that they're evil. Yes, I said it. They're evil. It was never a matter of them not understanding the economics of it. It was simply a matter of them wanting to lord power over the little people. This, you want an example of, the powerful, rich elite running their oligarchy? Look no further than the double standard where sexual harassment is concerned. If it's Judge Roy Moore, well, the media happily repeats the lies until they get the results they want. But when it was Bill Clinton for 8 years, we got nothing but crickets from the media. And oh, by the way, there's a new face of sexual harassment. There's a new face associated with this atrocious behavior that is known as sexual harassment. And by now, I'm sure you've all heard it's Chris Matthews at NBC and MSNBC. Chris Matthews. Well, all of a sudden, he's not making smart remarks anymore, is he? Chris Matthews. The guy that praised Barack Obama as being the perfect American? And Chris Matthews finds himself now in the crosshairs. The funny thing is, NBC has not said anything about this, but here is the story, ladies and gentlemen. NBC is silent on whether MSNBC's Chris Matthews could face other sexual harassment accusations. after Weekend reports that NBC paid money to a female staffer in 1999 who accused Chris Matthews of sexual harassment. The network kept mum for a second day about whether there were other women who had accused the longtime host of inappropriate behavior. The Daily Caller first reported on the payment Saturday. The website reported that Matthews paid $40,000 to the woman who worked on his show Hardball with Chris Matthews as an assistant producer. Representatives of NBC, CNBC, and MSNBC did not respond to Fox News emails and calls on both Sunday and Monday requesting comment as to whether other sexual harassment complaints had been filed against Matthews since the payout. NBC News confirmed Sunday that Matthews, 71, was issued a reprimand in 1999 after the woman complained to CNBC executives. An MSNBC spokesperson told NBC News that the execs were told that Matthews made inappropriate jokes and comments about the woman in front of others, that the matter was reviewed and it was determined that the comments were inappropriate and made in poor taste but were never meant as propositions. The show was on CNBC before it moved to MSNBC. The MSNBC spokesperson declined to specify the amount of the payment, citing confidentiality, NBC News reported. Matthews did not respond to a request for comment from Fox News either. Matthews is the latest big name in media to be accused of sexual misconduct in the past few months. Those revelations have been particularly bad at the embattled NBC. In November, the network fired its biggest star, Today Show host Matt Lauer, 59 years old, after he was found to have engaged in inappropriate sexual behavior with a female colleague over a period of time beginning at the Sochi Olympics in 2014. NBC also cut ties with political pundit Mark Halperin, 52, in October after he was accused of sexually harassing a dozen women, and Senior Vice President Matt Zimmerman for failing to report relationships he had with women who worked for him, the Daily Caller reported. Former Tennessee Democratic Congressman Harold Ford, 47, has not appeared on MSNBC's Morning Joe, where he was a frequent guest since he was fired from Morgan Stanley in early December in the wake of allegations that he forcibly grabbed a woman several years ago. MSNBC said it was looking into the report and that during that time he wasn't a guest on MSNBC. Ford has denied the allegations. New York Times star White House reporter Glenn Thrush, 50 years old, has also not appeared on MSNBC, where he was a contributor following a report in November that he forcibly groped and kissed 4 women. Thrush was suspended by the Times while the paper conducts an investigation. He has apologized and, according to the Times, planned to enter a substance abuse program. Oh, well, isn't that original? Last Friday, Fox News reported that NBC News chairman Andy Lack and his embattled deputy Noah Oppenheim are scrambling to put new sexual harassment policies in place at NBC News, even as they resist bringing in an outside investigator to look into who knew what about Lauer's behavior and who may have been covering up for him or enabling him. Instead, Lack has told employees that the investigation would be handled in-house by NBC lawyers and human resources executives. Both Lack and Oppenheim have longtime close ties to Lauer and have denied any knowledge of any sexual misconduct involving Matt Lauer. The 2 executives have been under intense pressure over how they themselves have managed issues of sexual misconduct at NBC News. NBC News has reported that there could be as many as 8 women accusing Matt Lauer of sexual misconduct. After his firing, Lauer expressed sorrow and regret for the pain I have caused, while saying that some of what has been said about him is untrue or mischaracterized. Numerous ethics and journalism experts have told Fox News in the last 2 weeks that NBC needs to bring in an independent outside investigator to answer all these allegations and questions and to apply scrutiny to both Lack and Oppenheim themselves. It's hard to see how an internal investigation that reports to senior executives would be viewed as complete and transparent when the conduct, or lack thereof, of senior executives, such as Andrew Lack, necessarily should be an issue, said Cornell University law professor and legal insurrection founder William Jacobson. So, more and more leftist Democrat operatives like Chris Matthews. What's that? Your hands are not as clean as you say they are? Wow. Anybody surprised by this? Honestly, can you honestly say you're surprised by this? I would say that would be a stretch. I mean, I've always known Chris Matthews was an idiot, but, I expected some consistency from those people that served with people like Tip O'Neill. Tip O'Neill, he was a politician's politician, and Chris Matthews worked with him on his staff for many years. But it really is sad to see, somebody like Chris Matthews, who held himself up as the great arbiter on his program, and now finds himself in those very same crosshairs. What happens? What was it Paul Simon said in the song You Can Call Me Al? He said, who'll be my role model now that my role model's gone? Those people on the left are now wondering to themselves, well, now, if Chris Matthews is guilty, then who can we look to as our moral arbiter? Rachel Madcow? I don't think so. I don't think so. It just turns out that, they're finding out that the same thing that happens to politicians in Washington happens to journalists that work for the mainstream media. Okay, let us go to the phones, and we're going to say hello to our good friend. That would be Jenny in Idaho. Or just plain Jen, right?
Jen is fine. Thank you. Hi, JJ. How you doing?
I am feeling jolly. How about you?
Oh, good. I'm excited about Christmas. 6 more days? I can't believe it. It came so fast.
It is. It's amazing. And, anybody that says they've got all their shopping done by now, I don't believe them.
Amen. We certainly do not. We had a handful of presents. That's it.
I wait until the last minute, and then I go to the truck stop. No,
a truck stop.
That's not true. What we do, what we have done in the past, and we kind of wind up doing this every year, is if somebody sees something they want, and it's a good deal and it's on sale, we just get it during the year. And, we don't go crazy.
Oh, that's smart.
We don't go crazy at Christmas, but we do try and make sure that if somebody wants something and it's reasonable that we can make that happen, we'll try and do it. But, you have to be very careful these days with the pocketbook because it seems like everything is just skyrocketing at the grocery store these days.
It's astronomical. Everything. The bigger the kids get, the more expensive their toys get. So we were shopping for Juju, and it was such a blessing because I can't say it too loud. I think they're playing hide and go seek, and I think she's in this cupboard over here.
Uh-oh.
But her toys, like Play-Doh and stuff like that, is very affordable compared to these games and game systems and everything everyone else wants. So what we did is we started buying them lessons, like Jessica's taking piano and someone else is taking drums and things like that they can do. Someone's painting, and so otherwise it's tough. It's really tough.
Well, you know, if I was to say what I wanted for Christmas, and I think Mrs. McCartney knows this, you know, that what I really would like, I would like to be able to at some point in time replace our range in the kitchen with a newer model that has the fan in the oven. So it's, you know, a convection type oven.
Oh,
because
that's awesome.
Everything you bake in an oven that has the fan in it, it cooks more evenly. And you know, since I got into baking, and I know people are saying, "You bake?" Yes, I do. Since I got into baking,
I saw the picture. Yes.
Well,
those breadsticks looked amazing.
Oh, they were fantastic, especially, you know, 10, 15 minutes after they baked. Oh, they were just spectacular.
Oh, the whole.
And
I bet the house smelled awesome.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to make more breadsticks, and I'm going to send a batch with Allison when she goes to work on Thursday, so that she can take a fresh batch of those breadsticks to her boss, and, you know, we'll put some marinara sauce in there for them to dip in or whatever, you know. And you know,
great!
And for the people that we really like, I think I'll make some goodies for them as well, especially my banker.
Oh, I hope you like it. Yes, I hope I'm one of those. Awesome.
But you know, it's something I enjoy doing. But I'll tell you something. What I'm learning is I have to pace myself. I really do, because if I bake too much, then we don't eat it in time and it goes bad. And so I have to pace myself a little bit. But when we're baking for others, I mean, I think I can get away with that, because we're just going to give those things away as fast as we can. But you know,
that's why
I've always thought that those types of things that you make with your own hands make very good presents for people. They really like them. And
I think it's the best. Yes.
And you know what I might do? I think I've got a cardboard box, and I think I have certain people's addresses, so I might just send some care packages out this week too, because you know what? It's been in this regard, it has been a blessed year, where I've been able to do something with my hands and take my mind off of a lot of things. And I'm not saying this to make people feel sorry for me or anything, but I have been dealing, and I know you have as well, with a lot of physical pain lately. And the worst of it for me is neuropathy in my hands. It always gets worse right around dinner time. And literally it feels like somebody has doused my hands in gasoline and lit them on fire. That's how it feels. And this kind of nerve pain, and by the way, my nerves are heightened anyway for some reason. You know, I got shingles about 5 years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And and ever since then, from time to time, the nerve pain, the nerve damage done by the shingles will just flare up. And, you know, right in the middle of my back or one of my shoulders will just go nuts. And, you know, it's a very unsettling thing when you can't control the source of the pain. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's frustrating, yes. Try the B12. B12 is awesome. It is absolutely wonderful.
I take a lot of B12. Yes. I really do. I do take a lot of B12 every day.
Okay.
And, you know, the thing I've heard that I want to try, and I don't want anybody to laugh and go crazy, but I'm going to try hemp oil, because I hear that it's effective. Yes. And
it is. I can't talk about that in Idaho because they are so against anything. But you can get some that doesn't have the THC in it, and that is supposed to be absolutely amazing.
Well,
so that's probably what you're talking about.
Well, where's the fun in that? You know.
No, I hope it works.
Kidding. I've never.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Me too. I just want something that works.
Yeah, I've never been a pothead, but I know people that have benefited from it. And, to me, it's like, doesn't law enforcement have enough to do without worrying about what treatments people are taking for legitimate medicinal purposes?
Exactly.
And it's not like you're trafficking in something that's illegal. It's just a matter of, I guess it's, why would it bother anybody in the state of Idaho if you found a treatment that worked for you that was, completely harmless to anybody else?
Right. There was a little boy that had epilepsy so bad and seizures, and his family had to move to Oregon. It's just a state away, but he got some hemp oil treatment or better stuff from that, and he's fantastic. I mean, he's back to normal. He can go a whole day without having anything, and he can pay attention in school. And I thought, for such good results in such an intense case, I can't understand why they won't change their stance. But it's the same guy who won't cut the taxes out on the groceries. We get taxed on all of our groceries, and so
you
he's
get
the same.
taxed on all of your groceries?
Yes.
Wow.
And we've tried to fight this so many times. That was a really weird revelation when we moved to Idaho. I couldn't believe it. But the guy's name is Otter, and I always say, "Oh, this is like a river rat." That's his last name, and that's what his name is. But bless his heart, he's they're doing good on their tax money. So I don't know. Maybe that's why the roads are so nice.
My only concern, if I start using hemp oil, you don't have anything to worry about unless you hear my all of my bumper music is from the Grateful Dead. If my bumper music is from the Grateful Dead, then you were in trouble. But no, I don't see that as happening. But, no, the thing is, when I was growing up, very little was known, at least in medical circles, about hemp. I mean, they wouldn't even use the words. They wouldn't even say cannabis or anything like that, because there was an instant marginalization that would take place if somebody actually suggested it. And as we've learned more in laboratories about the effects of certain parts of this miracle plant, which is really what it is, I think people need to understand that we're not talking about going down to the corner and buying a baggie full of marijuana, because to me, I mean, obviously that's not the thing to do. But they have done a fairly remarkable job of getting the good benefits of this plant, extracting this oil that literally means the difference between people being able to get up in the morning and do everything they have to do with their day and not. And the question I'm going to ask everybody is, where is the victim in this crime?
The people that need it.
Well, yeah, exactly. But it's a victimless crime. And like I say, doesn't law enforcement have enough to deal with the illegal trafficking of, opiates, for example, across the border? They just busted. They just tried to bust a pharmacy company that the medication comes from somewhere in Europe, and they have been selling it to drug dealers in Mexico who've been trafficking it to people that just want to get high. And the epidemic of opioid deaths in America, I think they said something like 60,000 deaths in America per year from overdosing on opiates, and it's opioids, I should say. And this is a serious problem, and yet they're more worried about something that you need that very likely your doctor could prescribe to you legally. I think that they need to rework their the whole paradigm when it comes to enforcement, because what we're seeing right now is a joke. It really is.
Absolutely.
It's like where's the victim in this crime? I ask everybody out there to if you feel strongly on this, please let us know. But Jen, I'm all for whatever works for somebody in a situation like mine or yours. And by the way, you are in our prayers every day.
Oh, thank you. You're in ours too. Thank you. It was discouraging. They're saying it's not remitting, relapsing MS, but it's just progressive. And I thought, oh, Jesus, here I come. I'm like, that's scary because I have a lot of work to do. And, I mean, I know where I'm going. That's not the scary part. It's just I have so much unfinished business. And he goes, well, you're not dying now. And I'm like, you didn't have to say it that way. And he says, aren't we all dying from the time we are born? And I thought, oh, what a miserable way to look at things. But then I think of something that the pastor says at our church. He says that, how does he say that? He says, I don't know how he says it. Never mind. I shouldn't have said that. Pardon me. It's not like I'm on the radio or something.
I was talking to my brother the other day, the one in Alaska, asking him how he's doing. He said he was at the doctor the other day, and the doctor said he wanted to have some tests run. He says, let's run some tests. I don't think you're having a heart attack right now, but we probably should run some tests. And I'm like, wow.
Oh, my God.
It's like it sounds to me like that doctor might have had a little, hemp to just say something like that out loud. It's like, it's not like you just, you're probably not having a heart attack right this minute,
You never know.
Sleep
oh, my
well.
gosh. That's scary. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's scary stuff.
So,
wow, I'll pray for him too. Yes.
So have you guys got any snow on the ground up there?
Yes, we do. It just started yesterday, or probably 2 days ago, and it's very light. It was only 41 degrees outside today, so the kids were babysitting today, and they wanted to go outside on the trampoline, and I'm more scared that the trampoline is going to crack or something, that they're going to jump on it, and it's it's going to break. But I don't know. It'll be an easy way to pick it up because Jesse's like stressing out on how are we going to move this thing. It's so big. And so I'm thinking, well, you could probably roll up the sides around the edges, but I'm thinking if the kids jump through the middle and it's, hopefully they don't get hurt. But I don't know what else to do with it.
Well,
so, it's cold, but it's only 41.
I'm checking our weather maps here, and they're saying that not tomorrow, but Thursday, that we'll probably get about 3 inches of snow. And we haven't seen snow in a long time. But yesterday, our high temperature was like 60, okay? And,
come on. Oh, wow.
No, and tomorrow, the high temperature is going to be 58. And then, listen to this. It's Wednesday, our high is 58. Thursday, our high temperature is going to be 22.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
So, yeah,
how can it... Oh, man.
I think you guys must be mailing this weather our way.
Yeah, I apologize, and I don't mean to. We didn't mean to do that, but it looks like it's our fault. Sorry. They were mad at us when we moved here, all of our neighbors, because they said, you came from Michigan. I think you brought this with you, because they haven't seen snow like we had for the last 2 years in Idaho since we moved here. And I felt bad, too. I was apologizing for that, too. And they said, we're just teasing. I go, I know that, but it's just funny how it follows us.
Well,
I can't help it. It just does.
Anybody.
I know it does.
Anybody with a brain knows that, you move from one place to another. The weather doesn't travel with you, But
right.
but they always look to blame you. It was when we moved from Alaska to Arkansas in 1975. And then all of a sudden, the next year, we moved into this house on the lake, and we had the winter to beat all winters. I mean, they had, at one point, I think we had like 32 inches of snow on the ground in northeast Arkansas, And so naturally, everybody's, shaking their fist at us. Hey, we didn't bring this with us. I got my share of it growing up in Alaska, but... it's funny how people make that correlation, say, well, you came here, you brought this with you. And it's like,
Right. Oh, man.
I wonder what they would have said if I had come from Fort Knox and all of a sudden it starts raining gold bars, Would they give me the credit then?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, that would be great.
Although, as I understand it, we don't own any of the gold that's in Fort Knox anymore anyway, so what difference does it make?
Oh, yeah, I heard that it was... don't even say that. That's someone else's line.
Sorry.
What does it make anyway? No, that's okay. Forgive you.
I didn't mean to misquote Hillary Clinton on the show.
Oh, that was miserable. I had a good line I saw Facebook this morning, and I don't follow Hollywood, and I like Julia Roberts, but now I really like her because I saw this quote by her that she said that Michelle Obama is not even fit to clean Melania's toilets. And I thought, oh dear, she's not.
I love it.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was very cool.
Wow.
Something nice out of Hollywood. It was awesome.
Well, that's kind of, I think that, when you take something too far like Hollywood has and like the media has, there's going to be a backlash at some point, And you know where I think the backlash is? I think that some of the backlash is being shown right now because, as I understand it, the new Star Wars movie is not nearly as phenomenal as the other Star Wars movies were. And I just get the feeling, I noticed it the other day while watching something on TV where they were running all these commercials for the Star Wars movie. And I was thinking to myself, I just don't think that it's the same anymore. First of all, Star Wars happened 40 years ago. You can't expect it. You can't expect, people to be as enthused today as they were 40 years ago. But, I think that a lot of things about this movie are a little bit weird. Like, for example, they say that the featured character is Leia, Carrie Fisher.
She was in it.
Yeah.
It felt like she had never passed away. Seriously, it was really uncomfortable watching that and knowing that she was dead. And I thought, wow. But it was kind of, I really liked the movie. And they pulled it off really well. And it was the first time I ever respected Luke as a character because he was older. Yeah, he didn't have the stupid, deer in the headlights look, and his eyes were wide open. He was older, and he has facial hair, and he was really a man. This was the first time.
Well,
I won't even tell you what happens to him.
No, don't say. We don't want to know. Because I do
would like this movie.
I do plan on watching it at some point, but I don't plan on, waiting in line for it. I mean, it's like there's people out there crazy enough that they'll go out and they'll sit, 36 hours before tickets go on sale with their lounge chairs and whatever, and they'll wait in line. And I just, it's something happens when you get older. It's like all of a sudden it's not that big a deal.
Right. My guys are Star Wars freaks. I mean, it's all from Jesse, bless his heart. Anyways, he bought the tickets online, so we had them, ready ahead of time. So when we got there was a line, outside the door of the theater. So it was so cool to go in there and just touch the kiosk and scan this paper. And we were fine. And we went in and we had the best seats in the house. And people were saying, well, how'd you do that? And Jesse said, just buy them online. And of course, that's what you're supposed to do. But it was really nice. And we all had fun. Even Julie liked it. Usually I have to see something else with Juju. Yeah, usually we have to see something else because it's just above her head, but this was really nice. It had so many different characters, and you will respect Luke in this one show. It was really good.
Well, I think that, the whole phenomenon of Star Wars in 1977 was, it was a compulsory thing everywhere you went. If you didn't know the characters from Star Wars, and if you didn't, follow the movie franchise, then people thought there was something wrong with you socially. It's like you must follow these movies. And of course, when we were young, I mean, it was all aimed at our age group to begin with. You had the kid in his late teens with the teen angst and doesn't really want to be there. And how many young people, when we were young, growing up in wherever we grew up, wasn't it our number one goal to get the heck out of that town? I know it was for me. 5 days, literally 5 days after I graduated college, at the age of 18, 5 days later, I'm on a plane back to Anchorage, Alaska, because that's where I wanted to be. And yet now I look back. I look back on where I lived in Arkansas when I was young, and I long for it. I say, man, why did I do that? And I think that it's just, teen angst is something that's created by the culture that makes you want for something else, even when you've got everything you need. God's provided everything you need, and it's like, no, I just got to go somewhere else. And, I think that Star Wars tapped into that anxiety. in the demographic in the late 70s. I mean, because at least everybody I knew was getting tired of disco. They were getting tired of the terrible clothes of that era. And I mean, if you've ever watched, the movie Saturday Night Fever, or if you've watched the wardrobe of salesman Herb Tarlick on WKRP in Cincinnati, then it says everything there is to say about the bad clothes. Oh, it was awful. You know what my mom did? You know what my mom did to me when I was 14, 15 years old? She bought me a powder blue leisure suit.
That's terrible. Oh my gosh.
It's like, what am I, Mr. Furley? Am I Mr. Furley on Three's Company or something? It's just crazy. But my mother, she didn't see anything wrong with it. Oh, it looks good on you. No, it doesn't. This wouldn't look good on anybody, But
my dad wore his into the 80s. It was powder blue and it had pinstripes. It was terrible. It wasn't until about 86 we were like, dude, you cannot wear that out with us in public anymore. And he's like, why? He had no idea.
My dad, the only suit or suit coat that he would wear outside the house socially was a really nice wool blend herringbone suit that I inherited when he passed away, and it was the most comfortable thing I'd ever put on. It was wonderful, and of course, nice. It's long gone now. But my dad, he wasn't into suits. He wasn't into any of. My dad never put on airs. He was from a different time. He grew up in the hardest part of the Depression, and he just he was a guy that put comfort over everything else. The shoes he wore every day when he wasn't on duty were they were made by Red Wing. And they were the slip-on Red Wing leather shoes that had the elastic, stretchy stuff on both sides. It wasn't Velcro or anything like that, but those were so comfortable, and that's what he preferred to wear when he went anywhere, And when he on those rare occasions when he did have to socialize, out comes the yellow button-up shirt and the wool blend jacket, and that was it, But
that's fun.
But yeah, I was unfortunate to grow up in the 70s the way I did, because the clothes were just god awful. Yeah, but the only thing the only thing I would ever wear at school was blue jeans and T-shirts. Of course, most people, that's what they do. But it was just, to me, it was like some of the stuff that they were doing fashion-wise was just like sleeveless denim vests and things like this,
Oh,
and it's like
terrible. Did you have bell bottoms?
No, I never wore bell bottoms. No, never did.
Okay.
I fought that. I knew people that had them, but I just thought they looked so silly. It's like, why would you have bell bottoms? Unless you're in the Navy. Right. If you're in the Navy, I can see bell bottoms, but not in everyday life. But here's a funny story. It was the summer of 1976, and the nation was celebrating its bicentennial. The Olympics were coming up, all these things going on. And we lived on a lake, and we had a 12-foot rowboat that we got one of these trolling motors for, so that we could putt around the lake with a trolling motor. And it takes a 12-volt battery to run the trolling motor. And so I would have to charge the battery and then carry it down with me when I go fishing or whatever. And so one day, I'm not paying as much attention as I should be, and the battery was charged, but it was leaking fluid through some of the top caps on the battery. I didn't notice this until I was done fishing, and I'm coming back up the hill with the battery. I set it in the garage, and I go in the house, and I look down, and there's this hole just to the left of my personal space. Okay, put it that way.
Oh no! It got through your pants. Oh my God! No, oh, that's terrible. You could have hurt yourself.
You want to know? You want to know what my mother did? My mother went out and she bought a bicentennial round patch, and she sewed it.
Patch. Oh my God!
And I wore those. I wore those pants to school and back. And it was like, what people were wondering if I was sending some sort of social message. I was like, nope. I just carried the battery the wrong way, That's it.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I'm sure there's
That's
pictures.
Crazy.
I'm sure there's pictures of me wearing these jeans somewhere. But, yeah, that's...
Oh, it's funny.
But you know what? But that was part of my parents. They were like, you know what? You didn't ruin the whole pair of jeans, just one little spot, so we'll just patch them, And it was like, back then, a pair of Levi's, I think, probably cost, $12 or $13. And
wow, they're
it's
like 40.
Oh, it's terrible now. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Wow.
But the cool thing was that, I look back on those times and it's like now I can see myself doing that. It's like, why throw away the whole thing? We didn't, it's like I only found one spot of mold on the loaf of bread. Just cut that off and let's eat it. But
that's so gross. That's funny. I know my grandparents did that too. I remember my grandma. She would have a clothesline in her kitchen with those clothespins on it, and she'd be drying out her baggies, like the plastic baggies you get vegetables in at the grocery store.
Yes.
She would reuse those.
Oh, yeah.
She lived through the Depression. She knew exactly what to do. And any old clothes they had, she would take pieces and she'd quilt them. I mean, they used every single thing. They didn't have garbage men like we have garbage men. They would take their stuff out to the alley.
Right.
Well, that was in Detroit, of course. But it was only one bag a day. It was because they would actually use stuff. They'd compost.
Yep.
Their fresh food. It was amazing how they lived. It was very wise.
And honestly, I'm afraid that these young generations coming up, unless we teach them, they're not going to really even understand what, things like composting and all those things. Recycling is one thing, but when you use your garbage to grow your food, I think that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I think that is about as cool as it gets.
Right.
It's like God put the common sense in our brains to do this. And what we see happening now in our culture is that we're getting farther and farther away from that. And it's like self-reliance is never a bad thing to have in your back pocket.
Right. Right. Everything is a cycle. It can all be cycled. It really can, except for plastics. And that was not around until it not as plentiful as it is now. We didn't have plastics like this when I was growing up because we had everything that came in jars. Peanut butter came in jars.
Yep.
Ketchup came in glass.
Right.
And so it's cool to be self-reliant. And we're trying to be. We're not, certainly not as much as we could be at all. But we had good examples, the grandparents.
Yeah, engineering-wise, I think we come a long ways, too, because now you've got, a lot of the plastics that you get are photodegradable, which means that, they don't last forever. When they get out in the sunlight, they tend to break down and go back to whatever it was they were before they were plastics. And I think that that's cool. I think that, there's a matter of fact, I have become the envy of the community here because what I did is I'd order stuff online. I'd order stuff online and I'd wind up with all kinds of bubble wrap everywhere, in the garage and the downstairs. Cool. And so what I did is I took this bubble wrap and I put it in black plastic bags. And I needed to make some space one day, so I did this, and I put the black plastic bags in the back of my pickup and then forgot about them. And as time went by, the black plastic bags just kind of disintegrated around the bubble wrap. Oh. And so I wound up taking the bubble wrap and stuffing it inside my truck toolbox so it didn't blow out. And then, so we have ample supplies of this stuff inside and outside. And Allison yesterday had to go to the post office to mail a couple of packages, and she carries the stuff in with her, and she carried bubble wrap with her into the post office to stuff. And there were people around her saying, "Hey, where did you get that bubble wrap?" Oh, she goes, "Oh, my dad keeps it." Yeah, she was bragging about me at the post office. My dad keeps it. So,
that's awesome.
But there's, and by the way, bubble wrap is also a very effective anti-theft device in your house. You just put it on the floor, and then
I never really stuff.
Seriously,
Oh my god,
it's funny as heck. It's like if for
sounds
some
like a
reason
gun. Oh
if for some reason the bubble wrap lands on the floor and you don't realize it, it's one of the most disquieting sounds you can hear when you're stepping, and all of a sudden you hear these pop, 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 pop. All of a sudden I'm like, am I in the hood? Did we wind up in the hood, or where are we? But
oh, that's fun.
And
we did an activity with balloons where they had to take. It was hard enough to make it, but it was fun, and we put a piece of a scripture verse in a balloon, and there were there were 20 balloons, and it was just one scripture verse, and the kids had to pop the balloons and put together the scripture verse, and that was like their mission, to pop these balloons. Well, the church heard all this popping, and it sounded like guns going off, and there were two big men that came in, and they were like armed, and they were so scared, and they were like ready to take the shooter down, and we're like, sorry, it's just a Sunday school activity we're doing with the teens. But it's funny. It's very loud when you start popping those balloons or even bubble wrap, like you were talking about. It gets people's attention. It really does.
Well, I got to tell you, it's the simple ideas that really work. And, it's amazing how some people try and make it so complicated, and they want to put cameras everywhere, and they, want all these things so that they don't, lose their stuff. And it's like, most people in towns the size of ours, they don't even lock their front doors, And but they, they'll spend all this money on security systems, but they forget to lock the door. And, it's kind of, when I was growing up, especially in Alaska, I mean, everybody had keys. Well, now it's like, I don't even know where a key is to our front door. If I had to unlock the front door, I don't think I could.
Wow.
It's like
you got me thinking. I don't know where ours are. We just use the garage door opener, and that's how you get in. Oh, I just think I just told the whole world how to break into our house. Yeah. But you're right. I don't know where our keys are at all. That's funny. Wow.
Well, whatever you do, just remember to tell people that you don't live in the same town you actually live in, Just to throw a smoke screen out there so that they won't realize that it's you, but...
Right. Yeah, we're back in Detroit, of course.
Okay,
yeah.
so
that's what it says.
So tell me,
Facebook,
at the Woodruff household... Oh, now I've done it. I've said your last name. Yeah, that'll help. At your household, what is the scenario? Do you do anything on New Year's Eve, or do you save it all for New Year's or for Christmas? I'm sorry, Christmas Eve, Christmas morning. When do the kids get to open their presents?
Well, we're starting this new thing, which I saw on Facebook, because I learned everything on Facebook. No, I learned a lot. But this was a really cool idea for Christmas Eve, and I thought, this is really neat. Just one box, and in it you have a stack. So we always pick out a movie to watch on Christmas Eve, and in this box you get a snack, which is probably your own little popcorn, or something. We go to the dollar store a lot. And then a pair of pajamas, and then a little toy or something, or a flashlight or something, just to keep you cozy, and it's yours, and you're on the couch, and we're having a family movie night. So I think that would be fun. So we're doing that on Christmas Eve. I don't know what movie we're using yet, but last year was a really good one, and Carrie Fisher's in it alive. It's not a postmortem movie like the latest Star Wars, but this one was really good. It's called The Burbs. And have you seen that? It's got Tom Hanks in it.
Yeah, I saw it years ago. I thought it was terrible.
Oh, it's good. It's really cute. It's from the 80s, but
yeah, I remember it was the first year that Susan and I were married, and we were expecting something different. And because it was Tom Hanks, and because it was I think it was a Steven Spielberg movie, we were expecting something.
And Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, we were expecting something. It just didn't live up to the hype at the time. Well, but there was one that was worse. The one absolute worst Tom Hanks movie of all time was Joe versus the Volcano. It was just terrible. It was just very poorly written. It was really stupid.
There's a new one out. Well, it's 2 years old. It's called Terminal, and he's not terminally ill.
Yeah, we saw it.
He's from Russia. Have you seen? Oh, that was cool.
He gets
that was
stuck.
really.
He ends up living in an airport.
Yes, I loved it. It was like a good immigrant. I really liked it.
Yeah, it was interesting and everything. But I go back to the Burbs, and it was to me it was a little forced. You know what I mean? Just a little bit forced.
Yeah.
But
it was fake, but it was funny.
But if you watch Steven Spielberg movies, go all the way back to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Every Steven Spielberg movie, E.T., Close Encounters, all the others, always set in the suburbs. Always.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And so what that tells me is that, and that's one thing that I'm sure Spielberg had in common with John Hughes. John Hughes was, he grew up in Chicago, and so all of his movies basically were set in Chicago. And, John Hughes is the one that did Planes, Trains, Automobiles, Uncle Buck. There were several others that he did. 16 Candles. He was a great filmmaker. He really was. But these directors, they get set in their mind where they want to set the movie. And, I think the reason they do it is because they're so familiar with the landscape. And so they can use the landscape in their movie in a way that some people might not think to do it. And so it makes the movie actually more enjoyable because of the dynamic of that. If I could make a movie in my hometown, I think it would be pretty cool. But of course, that'll never happen because they won't let me back in.
You never know. Oh no.
Well, Jen, always great catching up with you. I hope you get to feeling better. I know. Believe me, my heart is with you when it comes to what you're going through and what we're going through. And it's like, we wouldn't mind, God, if you would send us a little bit of relief every now and then, just so we can remember what it felt like, when we were normal. But
right. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks.
Well, I hope that Christmas goes very well for you and the kids and Jesse, and please give everybody our best. And who knows, we might send you some baked goodies very soon.
Oh, I can't wait. Thank you. Alrighty, talk to you soon.
Thank you. Sir. Take care. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for the Tuesday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show. Always good to hear from our good friend Jen and find out what's happening in her world, which is, not that far away from our world. She's up in Idaho. We're in Nebraska. And I think if we hurried, we could get there in 10 or 11 hours. Maybe a little less. But I tell you what, folks, there's no finer people in the world than that family. They're like family to us. And there are others as well that we've gotten to know through the show and the show alone that have become like family to us. And so, yeah, always good to hear from them. And I just feel blessed that we've gotten to know these people over the years. I hope all of you are doing well, and I hope you have a good rest of your Tuesday. Tomorrow, Wednesday, IQ Al Rassouli on the program. We cannot wait to talk to him. We'll cover the latest news, and who knows what else we'll talk about. But in the meantime, my friends, please, and I want to ask everybody to do this all the time, pray for our country, pray for our president, pray for our leaders, and pray that we can bring this country back on track and get a little bit of civility restored, because it seems like that's what's really been missing in the past year. And it's thanks in no small part to the Democrats, who have been more hostile towards this president than any party has ever been towards another. And that is a sad precedent. All right, be good to yourselves, and if you possibly can, be good to someone else. And remember, we'll win in the end because there are more of us than there are of them, because God is with us, and because we are all in this thing together. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. See you back here on Wednesday. Until then, God bless. Bye-bye.